It takes a lot of courage to go out on the streets and tell the world what you believe. But that's what 120 Christians in Cheltenham did one Easter. Their passion play about the life, death and resurrection of Jesus brought traffic to a standstill and blocked up the high street as the life of Jesus unfolded on the streets of their town. Despite heavy rain at the beginning of the 3-hour performance, an ever-growing crowd followed the actors. They were amused, abused, bewildered, gripped, shocked, and finally overjoyed by this amazing story. But of course, this isn't just a story, this is history. The excitement and message of the play now moves on from the streets of Cheltenham into homes, schools and churches. This video asks the question, Jesus, today, tomorrow, forever. The first programme, Jesus for Today, captures the heart of the Passion Play, but it also goes further. Those who took part and others who watched talk about their experiences, their faith, and the way in which the play changed their lives. In Jesus for Tomorrow, Matt Medhurst, Jesus in the play, went along to talk to pupils at Pitfield School in Cheltenham to find out what the resurrection of Jesus means for Christians today. In Jesus, Forever the Same, characters from the play share a series of 3-minute meditations based on the 5 themes of the production: friendship, conflict, betrayal, death and resurrection. This guide that goes with the videos comes up with some interesting suggestions for ways in which the programmes can be used for personal reflection by groups or in schools. The people of Cheltenham put a lot of care and imagination into the production of their Passion Play. They worked and they prayed hard to try and bring a sense of the living Christ to the people of their town. So, as you watch, why don't you try and capture their vision and ask yourself the same question: Jesus today, tomorrow, and forever.
What do you think of Christianity?
I'm afraid I don't know much about it.
Do you think it's true?
No.
What do you think Christianity is?
I've got no idea.
I don't think anything about it.
Indifferent to it.
What do you think of Christianity?
Don't believe in it, so...
It's all right, I suppose.
Sorry, do you think it's true?
No.
Do you think Christianity's true?
Yes.
In my opinion, no, not really true, but then I think I believe Christianity in my own sort of way. I don't believe in going to church every Sunday and stuff like that, but I do believe in God my own way.
My own belief is if you take every single religion, package it all together, then you've probably got the answer.
I sincerely believe that you've got to believe in something. And that's what I was taught as a youngster, to be honest.
We need a faith to believe in, don't we? Yes.
It's brought a meaning to society, and if people don't follow that, then society will begin to break down.
Well, yes, certainly is irrelevant today. There's a lot of big issues which are happening and we need more of it to sort it out.
What do you think of Christianity?
What is it, a pop star?
A what, sorry?
A pop star.
What do you think of Christianity?
It's a load of rubbish.
What makes you say that?
It's all farce. It's all, handed down generation to generation of wives' stories, really, basically.
I guess it's really important. It's such a shame that most people don't realise what these celebrations are all about.
Our vision was to take the story of Jesus onto the streets of our town, and in telling the story of Jesus, bring the message home to people in the place where they lived.
We found the actors by putting notes in churches and begging people and pleading with people and accosting people.
My initial reaction was that I didn't want to get involved, didn't want to have anything to do with it. About a month or two before being originally asked, my dad had died. He'd been battling cancer for about 3 years, and unfortunately died in the August of that year. And really that had reduced my faith to next to nothing.
We found that people were keen to take part in the Passion Play, and from the very word go, there was an enthusiasm and a commitment, but finding the part of Christ was difficult.
I didn't really think I had enough faith to even watch the play, let alone be in the play.
In the beginning was the Word.
And I suddenly felt quite isolated and really realised that I had to go back to what I knew, which was my faith and living a Christian life.
And the Word was with God, and the Word was God.
God's planning being what it is, about a week later, the phone rang and a voice on the other end of the phone said, look, this is a long shot, but would you like to get involved? We still would like you to be involved. So obviously then my answer was an immediate yes.
And as a sign of that friendship, let's eat together. I'm sure someone has something.
Marvellous as the rehearsals went on, how people did commit themselves to their parts.
It was really good to meet together with so many other people from different churches. It was fantastic.
And that, I think, for me, was one of the most special things about the whole play, that there was a real sense of churches coming together.
Well, I'm challenging that. I am telling you to love your enemies. Let them bring out the best in you, not the worst.
I think we obviously took shape as a cast, but also as a Christian circle, almost a family. I mean, it felt that way for me. You know, to come to a rehearsal on a Wednesday was a very uplifting experience and a helpful experience, again, of continuing to get my life back on track.
Simon Peter and Andrew, you're fishermen. And you, James and John, come with me. I will make a new kind of fisherman out of you. I will show you how to catch men and women instead of fish.
We grew our beards and moustaches as the real thing, and in my work in amongst the public, it very quickly was, it's the passion play again, is it, Doctor? I developed this very embarrassing evening shadow and then very rough and ready look.
And Judas Iscariot, leave everything and follow me. Blessed are you who are poor, for yours is the kingdom of God. Andrew, blessed are you who are hungry now, for you will be filled.
This Sermon on the Mount is all about togetherness, and it feels comfortable and lovely, and then suddenly Jesus says, well, it's all very well loving the people you get on with, but what about loving your enemies too? And then you're into the challenge of Christ's teaching. It's not an easy love. It's the kind of love that breaks barriers down.
Blessed are you who weep now, for you will laugh. Come, all of you, and follow me. The way is narrow. The path is difficult. So take care and follow me.
See, knock, and follow.
And so it's on to a moment of healing of a woman who's rejected by everybody else, and barriers are coming down.
Who touched me?
But Master, we've got crowds of people on our hands. Dozens could have touched you.
Someone touched me. I felt power discharging from me.
So many men. They used me. They abused me. And then it started. The bleeding. And it wouldn't stop. No one could help me.
She was really looked down upon by society from the type of life that she'd had before, but he accepted her, and she responded to him by devoting her whole life to his service. It was quite a transformation.
The bleeding, it stopped.
Daughter, you believed in me, and now you are healed and whole. Live well. You're blessed. And follow me.
Round to a Samaritan woman, and the Samaritans were hated by the Jewish folk, and there's a division, and the barriers are coming down because this love is being made real.
How come a Jew is asking me, a Samaritan, for a drink?
If you knew how much God loves you, and who I am, then you would be asking me for a drink, and I would give you fresh, living water.
Here was a woman that Jesus met at a well who had had 5 husbands before. She was living with a man at the time who wasn't her husband. She was obviously very loose morals. Jesus just accepted her and was quite prepared to talk to her, and it just really captured my imagination that Jesus just accepts each one of us. It doesn't matter what we've done, who we are, what our background is.
The water I give will be like a spring, gushing fountains of endless life. Go and call your husband, and then come back here.
Sir, I have no husband.
I have no husband. You've had 5 husbands, and the man you're living with now isn't even your husband. I have no husband. That's true enough.
It's as if the teachings of the Sermon on the Mount are being made real by the love that Christ has for people, which breaks barriers down and brings friendship where once there was hostility.
Who am I?
You are the Christ, the Messiah.
But the time is not yet ripe. It is necessary for the Son of Man to face an ordeal of suffering, to be put on trial. It is necessary for the Son of Man to be found guilty by the religious leaders. It is necessary for me to be killed. But on the 3rd day I will rise up again and live.
That can never be!
Peter, get out of my way! You Satan, get away from me! You have no idea how God works. Don't run from suffering. Embrace it. Follow me and I will show you how.
Well, Good Friday was the day when Christ was crucified, when he was executed. In fact, they took him out and fastened him to the cross at 9 o'clock in the morning. And at midday, 12 o'clock, the sky went dark. And so we chose to start our Passion Play at midday. Very early in the morning, at about 7:30, I walked through the streets. They were quiet. There was a stillness. And there was a wonderful kind of sense of expectation and a lot of apprehension as well. One of the things we did, as we'd done at all the rehearsals, was to start with a moment of prayer.
Any sort of performance piece, but certainly a Christian piece, you need to come before God, to give yourself over to God. If I take it on my own shoulders, I always feel it will fall flat. You need to say, God, this is yours, and I'm yours. Please, use me now.
And then we started walking out, and then the rain came down, and I thought we were all going to go home, and they didn't, and they stayed, and it was gobsmacking. They just stayed. The grandmas and the children and the mums and the dads, and they kept coming, and the rain kept coming, and Matthew kept preaching, and everybody kept going, and it was like, that was the launch into a different dimension of the whole play, I think.
Apart from the fact that everyone was putting up their umbrellas and the noise of the rain on the umbrellas, and a complete stranger offered to share his umbrella with me because I hadn't got one. I was soaking wet by then.
I think that the fact that everyone was huddled there under umbrellas and braving it out, sort of gave us strength to go on with it.
The time has come for the Son of Man to be lifted up and glorified. Right. Listen carefully. Unless a grain of wheat is buried in the ground, dead to the world, it is never any more than a grain of wheat.
There, in Cheltenham's International Friendship Park, we told the story of Christ's love for people, his willingness and desire to break barriers down between men and women, between people of different races, and to enable people to be friends together and friends together with God as well.
In the same way, anyone who holds on to life just as it is destroys that life. But if you let it go, you will have it forever, real and eternal. If any of you wants to serve me, then follow me.
Jesus, just as you said, a donkey. Look, our king. There he goes, poised and ready mounted on a donkey.
Hosanna! Hosanna! Hosanna in the highest!
was very, very interesting indeed to find myself playing a religious leader who was also the bad guy in the performance. And actually it made you think about the place of a religious leader and the potential for both good and evil.
They kept quiet! The stones themselves would shout and sing! Peace! 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 Be still!
Jesus had reached the gates of Jerusalem and was himself saying, I am the gate. You have to come through me if you want to obviously live the better life, the better way.
And there's a wonderfully powerful moment when everyone simply has to follow Christ through the gateway and into the town, as if they are taking seriously his words, I am the door, and they enter through him.
But now, it's too late.
This is where the trouble begins, as soon as we go through these gates. So, follow me, but know what we're going into.
As you have the light, believe in the light, then the light will be within you and shining through your lives. You will be children of light. If anyone wants to serve me, then follow me. I am the gate. Anyone who goes through me will be cared for.
What about churches? Do you think they're relevant for today?
Church has always been relevant, haven't they? Let's be honest. People need solace, different things in life, and that's where they go. That's where I go when I'm feeling down, I suppose.
It's there as God's, home, really, yeah.
Well, for people like myself, they are crucial in one's life for spiritual refreshment.
Do many of your friends go to church?
No,
Why do you think they don't go?
because they think it's boring.
I mean, generally speaking, people aren't interested in God, and therefore they're not interested in church itself.
If the church is the kind of PR arm of God, then it's doing a really bad job. I think it's totally out of touch with modern society and modern people.
We then walked round to Cambray Church, and the cleansing of the temple, it seemed wonderfully appropriate to do that in the courtyard outside a church building.
$1 denarii, 2 denarii hot cross buns. Thank you. Thank you very much.
I enjoyed it, and it was challenging and it was exciting because the gospel was going out into the streets, and all those people in Cheltenham, a lot of them were hearing about the gospel, seeing the gospel for the first time, and having their views on Christianity and church challenged.
Who's going to make me offer for the pigeon? 10 denarii. 10 denarii over here. 15. 20 denarii over here for the pigeon. 20 denarii. 25.50. 10 denarii. Anybody? 15. 15 denarii. 20 denarii. 25. 35 denarii. Go on, it's a really nice. Would you like to have a look at 35 denarii?
My house was designated a house of prayer for all the nations. You have turned it into a den of thieves!
We're not thieves.
Well, get out! Get your things out of here! Stop turning my father's house into a supermarket!
What are your credentials? Who are you to tell us what to do in the temple?
Tear down this temple, and in 3 days I will put it back together.
It took 46 years to build this temple, and you are going to rebuild it
In 3 days? I am the resurrection and the life. Those who believe in me, though they die, yet shall they live. And anyone who lives and believes in me shall never die. Come to me.
Yeah, that was the first incident in the whole of the script whereby I realised that I had reason to bring Jesus, as it were, to public trial, and he was getting on my nerves.
You are indifferent to popular opinion. You do not bow down to the whims and fancies of your own students. Tell us once and for all, is it right to pay taxes to the government or not? Why are you playing games with me? Why are you trying to trap me? Do you have a coin? Let me see it. This engraving, who does it look like? And whose name is on it? The head of state. Then give to the state what is theirs. And give to God what is his.
I found myself up against the crowd as well, up against everyone who was there. And from that moment onwards, I was prepared to put Jesus to death.
Stay with me. Stay with me till the end. You won't be sorry. And you'll be saved. I am the world's light. No one who follows me stumbles around in the dark. I provide plenty of light to live by. So come, follow me.
Hosanna! 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 Hosanna!
We took up quite an area, and one lady, I remember, walked past and she got quite irritated that we were taking up so much space in the high street. And she just, a passing comment as she tried to struggle through the crowd, she says, oh, what are they doing? Fancy doing this play on a bank holiday, for goodness sake. And off she went. And it just sort of made me realise that really, you know, this is why it's important to deliver the Easter message, is because people aren't aware that it's Good Friday.
We came to the high street, outside the Burger King, for the Last Supper, and Christ gathered the disciples around.
It was the first time you were aware of other people vocalising their opinions. I mean, obviously they were clearly upset that we were performing there anyway. And here we were trying to perform, again, one of the most poignant pieces within the Passion story. The Last Supper, as Jesus shares this last meal with his disciples, his friends that have been with him through so much.
The people were getting upset and they couldn't push past with their wheelchairs. That gave quite a sort of legitimate picture, I felt, of what maybe it was like.
And everyone, there is trouble ahead if you think life is all fun and games. For there is suffering to be met. Listen carefully.
Another part of the scene was going on. We could see out of the corner of our eye Caiaphas and Annas and Joseph discussing about the need to capture this man Jesus and to hand him over and to execute him.
Of course, we were on the other side. We were the ones who were disturbed by this movement. We were those who were saying, we've got to put a stop to this, or else this is going to get completely out of hand. Here's a crowd getting out of hand. How are we to control things?
At this point, Judas slips away from the other disciples, and he enters into a deal. For 30 pieces of silver, he'll hand Christ over to the religious authorities. And by the time he's finished his transaction, he comes back. And Jesus says there's one more person's feet to wash. And it's Judas's feet. And Judas has his feet washed at that moment. A tremendously moving thought that here's Christ, knowing what's going to happen, yet washing the feet of Judas. Then comes the moment when he breaks the bread And the first piece of bread is given to Judas. And Judas takes the bread, but then goes and joins the religious leaders and walks away, ready to betray Jesus.
Judas came out very surreptitiously, very guiltily in some ways, and made the arrangements with us. And we were just, as it were, on the side, and we quickly made arrangements with him that things should happen the following day.
I have done a number of passion plays before in Presbury, and I've seen how it affects other people playing Judas, and I felt that it was bound to have a profound effect, and it did. I would have felt bad had I been Peter playing Judas, but suddenly I was virtually Judas, and it was a very nasty feeling.
The Last Supper came to an end, and one of the special things that Jesus did in reality 2,000 years ago at that Last Supper was to share with his disciples comforting words to encourage and strengthen them, knowing full well that the very same night he was to be betrayed, and the very next day, in all likelihood, he was to go to his death.
Go in peace and hear the words of Jesus. You trust God, don't you? Trust me.
Go in peace and hear the words of Jesus. You trust God, don't you? Trust me.
There is plenty of room for you in my Father's home.
If it were not so, would I have told you that I go to prepare a place
And
for
if
you?
I'm on my way to get your room ready, I'll come back and get you so you can live where I live.
I am the road, also the truth, also the life. No one comes to the Father except by me.
Believe me, I am in my Father, and my Father is in me. If you can't believe that, believe what you see. The things that I do.
If you love
the
me,
things that are happening.
show it by doing what I've told you. In just a little while, the world will no longer see me, but you will see me because I am alive, and you are about to come alive.
The person who knows my commandments and keeps them, that's who loves me. And
I will not leave without someone to look after you. I'm coming back.
I will talk to the Father, and he will provide you with another friend, so that you will always have someone with you. This friend is the Spirit of Truth.
In this godless world, you will continue to experience difficulties. But take heart. I've conquered the world. I'm leaving you well and whole. That's my parting gift to you. Peace I leave with you. My peace I give to you.
Big issue. This week's big issue.
Okay, so if Good Friday was the day when Jesus was crucified and all his friends betrayed him, how would you feel if you were betrayed by your best friends?
Pretty rough, really, I guess. Pretty bad.
Would you be angry?
Probably.
That'd be the first feeling, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Anger.
Yeah.
Do you think you'd be able to forgive?
Yeah.
It'll take time, but yeah.
How do you react when somebody does something bad to you?
Say something back to them, horrible.
You get angry?
Yeah.
Do you forgive them?
No.
Would you be angry?
Never angry, just upset.
Could you forgive?
Yes.
Forgive and forget.
If you're a Christian, you believe that's the only way through salvation, isn't it?
Under the trees on the promenade comes the moment when Christ prays that he should not go through with this, but he knows he has to go through with it.
This sorrow is crushing my life out.
One of the things that I wanted to put across was that human side, that people could, again, remove the varnish to the story and see it just as a man having to do something he knew he couldn't avoid, and yet still having all those feelings of, why me? Why must this happen to me?
My father. If there is any way get me out of this! And yet, not what I want, but what you want.
Suddenly it got to the part where there was the betrayal. There was Judas, the good friend, doing what he had to do, doing what Jesus knew he had to do, but everything's suddenly going sour, and the mood of everyone watching turned with it. That the noise and the excitement that had followed up to that point suddenly became a hush.
I was enthusiastic to begin with, no question of it, but then I began to question, and then I began to doubt. And of course those doubts reached the point where I was actually prepared to betray.
Father!
But then, after the betrayal, then I suddenly realised the dreadful thing that I'd done.
You can get me out of this!
And desolation was really the only way of describing how I felt.
Take this cup away from me!
That very real human feeling of betrayal, of somebody that you've known and loved, letting you down in the most awful way, and effectively handing you your death sentence.
And yet, not what I want, but what you want.
With the clanking of swords, Judas arrives, and Christ looks at Judas, and he says to him, "Friend." Even at that moment, he regards Judas as his friend. And Judas may be thinking even at that moment, maybe he is still a friend, kisses Jesus on the cheek. And at that moment, the guards take over, and Christ is arrested.
Master, we'll fight for you! No! Oh, put your sword back where it belongs! Those who take up the sword die by the sword! Let them be!
I suppose I just felt I had to run away, get away from where I was at that precise moment. I know in reality Judas actually committed suicide. I didn't feel quite that desolate, but I did feel pretty lousy.
What is this? Coming out after me with swords and clubs, as if I were a dangerous criminal.
When you're surrounded by crowds, you can see the frailty of humanity, really, can't you? You know, there was I was supposed to be his biggest fan, his biggest supporter, and there he was going on trial. I should have been up there protesting his innocence.
I'm telling you, I was not!
You weren't! You were with him in the garden!
I didn't want to be apart from the crowd. You know, I denied him. Not once, not twice, but 3 times, just as he said I was going to.
Cock crows, the court is in session. Let the trial begin.
And as we moved into our roles as those who were going to try him and condemn him, and had already determined in our own minds that he was going to be condemned, one realised that this was not a fair trial.
Everything has been out in the open. I've said nothing in secret. So why are you treating me like a conspirator?
I, Caiaphas, High Priest, command you by the living God to say if you are the Son of God or not.
You yourself said it. The Son of Man seated at the right hand of the Mighty One, arriving on the clouds of heaven.
He blasphemed! We do not need witnesses to accuse him.
That's right. Death! That seals his sentence! Death!
Are you going to stand for this blasphemy, Joseph?
No. I'll say nothing.
Take him to the state authorities. Take him to Pilate. Yes. We hand him over to you. Do what you like.
Prophesy, Messiah. Who's gonna hit you next?
closer.
And there, on the steps of the municipal offices, he encounters Pilate. And it's the mayor of Cheltenham, wearing his mayoral robes.
Judge him by your law.
But we're not allowed to kill anyone.
I couldn't give the word for Jesus to be crucified. Only the Roman procurator could do that. Only Pilate could do that. But I had to have sufficient case for him to do it. That's why I centred on really two elements. One was that he came to destroy the temple, and that was part of the Jewish institution. The other was that he was the Messiah, that he would, therefore, if he was the true Messiah, he was likely to usurp, as it were, Roman authority.
So are you a king or not?
You tell me. Because I am king. I was born and entered the world so that I could witness to the truth.
He's a dangerous man.
Bring in Herod.
Make way!
We were portraying the modern day denunciation of Jesus Christ. How would the civic authorities, if Jesus were to come back today, how would they interpret what his message was? And that was very difficult for me, because as a Christian, here I was sort of ridiculing Jesus in front of the people and winding the people up who wanted to crucify him.
They call you a healer. Show me a miracle. They call you a teacher. Tell me a story.
I could see that Jesus really wanted no part of this. And something inside me said, well, perhaps this man is innocent, because he hasn't replied to any of my questions. So how can I say that he is guilty of what he is alleged to have done?
Nail him to a cross! Crucify him! Crucify him! Crucify him! Crucify him!
You take him. You crucify him. I find nothing wrong with him.
We have a law, and by that law this man should die. Because he said he was the Son of God.
I say again, I find this man guilty of no crime.
Anyone setting himself up as a king defies Caesar!
Yes! Crucify him! Nail him to the cross! Nail him to the cross! Crucify him! We have no king but Caesar!
And the contrast between Jesus and the growing fury, the absolute rage, and the terrible jealousy was stark, and it shook me.
Come on, King of the Jews.
You know, if somebody does stand up and make a bold statement of personal belief, they're ridiculed. I think then as now, it's just that fear of the unknown. If you don't understand it, then just ridicule it, stamp it out, get rid of it. Don't try and understand it.
Hail, King of the Jews!
And sadly, nothing's changed in 2,000 years. It's still the same now.
I wanted to be close to Jesus. As Jesus was walking and carrying his cross, I could almost feel the pain that he was feeling, the weight of the cross on the shoulders.
He had no dignity or beauty to make us notice him. There was nothing attractive about him, nothing that would draw us to him. We despised him and rejected him. He endured suffering and pain. No one would even look at him. We ignored him as if he was nothing.
He stumbled for a moment and fell. The weight of that cross was so great. He endured the suffering that should have been ours.
He looked me in the eye. "Daughters of Jerusalem, don't cry for me," he said. "Cry for yourselves and for your children."
He stumbled and fell a second time, crushed for our iniquities. We are healed by the punishment
They made
he
Simon,
suffered.
a man from Cyrene, carry the cross. He was only a passerby coming in from the countryside.
Jesus saw his mother, a face in the crowd. For a moment he stopped, but he said nothing. He was treated harshly, but endured it humbly. He never said a word.
A third time he stumbled and fell, like a lamb about to be slaughtered, like a sheep about to be sheared.
The road
He
was
never
hard and
said
steep.
a word.
It grew longer by the minute. He was arrested and sentenced and led off to die, and no one cared about his fate.
A woman
He was
in the
put to
crowd
death
stepped
for the
forward
sins
to
of
wipe
his
his brow. Maybe God's will is in this. His death was a sacrifice to bring forgiveness. He will live a long life, and through him, God's purpose will
Is near
succeed.
now, stark and forbidding. After a life of suffering, he will again have joy. He will know that he did not suffer in vain. My devoted servant, with whom I am well.
Evil people. 2 thieves with him. They too have a cross to carry, and around him the great and the good. God will give him a place of honour, a place among great and powerful people. For he willingly gave his life to share the fate of evil people. 2 thieves
Golgotha,
with
the
him.
place of the skull. He took the place of many sinners and prayed that they might be forgiven.
What do you think Easter is?
Easter, well, originally it was when Christ was resurrected, but now it's just an excuse for eating lots of chocolate.
Most people just think about sort of chocolate, don't they?
Chocolate. Do you know what Good Friday is all about?
No.
It's something to do with Easter, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not really aware of what Easter's all about. I've got a vague idea, but I can give you the ins and outs, so yeah.
What was on Good Friday? Can't remember actually.
Hot cross bun day, isn't it?
He took the place of many sinners and prayed that they might be forgiven.
Golgotha, the place of the skull. He took the place of many sinners and prayed that they might be forgiven.
Dragged through a crowd who have come to watch you be killed is not a nice feeling. And then getting taken to the foot of the cross, someone then takes your clothes off and you're stood there wearing nothing but a loincloth, being afraid of people seeing you naked, the fear of the pain there would be from the cross, just total humiliation being there.
And I came face to face with him for the first time with the crown of thorns and all the makeup. And it really hit me that this was really my son, that I wasn't any longer Wendy playing a part. I was Mary, the mother of Jesus. And I cried. I really cried. I didn't have to act those tears.
A sigh went up from the crowd, which was now very large indeed, in which we participated ourselves, even though our characters were to be glad that actually the emotion of the moment took over, and you were just aghast at what we were responsible for.
You bragged that you could tear the temple down and rebuild it in 3 days. Come on then, let's see you do it. Save yourself. If you're really the Son of God, why don't you come down from that cross?
I turned around and I looked at the crowd, and there were so many people almost crying, and some people were crying. It just really hit you. It's like a bombshell.
I just wasn't prepared for how it was going to affect me. I'm even welling up now just thinking about it. It was just really emotional.
I felt guilty that I'd been part of the process that had put Jesus there for crucifixion as my job as Herod. But as a Christian, it really empowered me to know that I was there. I was witnessing something that happened many years ago, that it was still as powerful and as relevant today as it was then.
Eli! Eli! My God! My God! Why have you abandoned me?
He's calling for Elijah.
As actually the cross went up, and I saw the image of Jesus crucified on it, and I suddenly realized that what Jesus wants us to do
I'm thirsty.
is not to help carry his cross, but to carry our cross, to shoulder it and follow him.
King of Israel, is he? Don't be such a hurry. Let's wait and see if Elijah's coming to save him.
He saved others, he can't save himself.
King of Israel, is he? If he thinks he's the King of Israel, then let him get down from that cross now.
That's right.
God's chosen Messiah rubbish.
Oh, Father, forgive them. They don't know what they're doing. Son Messiah, you are. Save yourself. Save us.
Stop your shouting. We deserve this, but not him. He's done nothing to deserve this. Jesus, remember me when you enter your kingdom.
I will remember. Today, you will be with me in paradise. It's done. Complete. Father, I place my life into your hands.
Everybody was facing the cross. I saw this man. He was a big bloke in leathers, and he had tears down his face. And he was doing what I was fighting to do, really, because I was kind of playing a part, but there was the me inside saying, this is my Jesus too.
He died for us, not just for himself, not for one other person, but he died for everybody. And it was, he was taking that burden for everybody. Knowing that Jesus was innocent, he died because that was what God wanted. He wanted him to die to take our sins. And knowing that he could have said no, he could have said, no, I'm not going to do this, but he went through with it. I didn't have any choice about that. The thief didn't have a choice.
This man did die for you. He took all this pain, all this unbelievable pain and suffering and humiliation, so that now you can live a life that can be so wonderful.
Jesus' words from the cross were, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. And we had just watched what they did, and that gave it an impact, at those words which to me were very, very familiar, used year by year for many years. had a new impact at that moment, because they told us that here was a man who had been mistreated and was up on the point of death in most excruciating pain. He was the one who was forgiving us when we were the ones who needed to ask forgiveness of him.
Truly, this man is the Son of God.
I didn't feel he could forgive me. I could understand, if you like, him forgiving the others because they weren't so close to him. They didn't understand what he really was, not until afterwards anyway. But I had been close to him, and I should have known.
The space in Imperial Gardens contained several thousand people, but an absolute stunned silence, and I think the silence of the witness was really quite fantastic.
It was just very moving, wasn't it? The silence. And people didn't really want to move away.
The line, "Why have you abandoned me?" It took me right back to how I felt when my father died, that God had completely left me. You know, I'd prayed my heart out, as I suppose Jesus had done in the Garden of Gethsemane, and it felt that God had just gone, "Sorry, not listening."
Christ experiences our humanity at its worst. And for anyone who feels abandoned by God, who has that feeling of God-forsakenness, look to the cross, remember Christ, and he's been there, he's felt it, he's shared it with us. And to my mind, that's one of the things that the heart of the Christian faith. Christianity doesn't say, believe in God, believe in Jesus, and everything will be all right, smile, Jesus loves you forever and a day. The message of the Christian faith is that God, in Christ, comes alongside us at the point at which we encounter suffering at its worst. And he stays with us, even though we don't feel that he's there. And through it, he brings us to the point of realizing there is something more beyond. There is resurrection.
Do you believe in life after death?
Nah, you're dead. Yeah, I'll say so. It's a nice thought to believe in, yeah, definitely.
Do you believe in life after death?
Oh yes, I hope so.
Well, I'm not exactly sure life after death as such, but I believe there is something after death, a spirit maybe, or yeah, there is something after death. There must be, because Jesus is there, he's waiting for us.
Well, the interval lasted from 3 o'clock on Good Friday afternoon until 8 o'clock on Easter Sunday morning.
One of the most fascinating things about Easter Sunday morning was actually arriving there really early, and some of the borough gardeners were out in force with their fluorescent jackets.
Sort of quietly got out of my car, dressed in the sort of the white robe, but with a council worker's luminous vest on, because obviously Jesus was mistaken for being just the gardener at the tomb.
And that was just a little profound moment.
Because we started at 8 o'clock in the morning, I thought, well, I think perhaps about half a dozen people might show up. And when I saw the crowds, I was astounded.
It was just so joyful and such promise. And everybody looked at each other and smiled at each other. And it really was a feeling of togetherness.
Woman, why do you weep? Who are you looking for? Mary.
Rabboni! Teacher!
Don't touch me, for I have not yet ascended to the Father. Go to my
Mary's face, you know, the big beaming smile I remember, and eyes wide open as I walked towards her. For me, and I hope for people watching, it really captured the joy and the excitement that would have been there as Jesus revealed himself, alive as he promised after 3 days.
Then he took a deep breath. It was as if he were breathing into us.
Receive the Holy Spirit. If you forgive someone's sins, those sins are gone for good. If you don't forgive sins, what are you going to do with them? Take your finger and feel my hand. Take your hand and place it in my side. Don't be unbelieving. Believe.
My Lord and my God.
So, you believe because you have seen with your own eyes. Even better, blessings are in store for those who believe without seeing.
Keith, my husband, he'd come to church for years and said he was a Christian, but he never had the complete faith that God was in charge of his life in the way that I had.
He was a big, bluff man who stood no nonsense, an ideal steward to steward a crowd like this. And he'd had an altercation earlier in the day with a bus driver who wanted to drive his bus through this crowd, and we'd had this difficulty of not being able to get the police to close off the streets for us. And he was in a foul mood, as it were, at that particular point earlier in the play. Turning around after the crucifixion scene was over, I saw him there, literally this great big man with tears rolling down his face. And Keith had been so moved by the crucifixion that day that it really was a life-transforming moment for him.
And everyone he met had to know about this wonderful experience. And I'm sure that in a way, what happened 2 weeks later, that Easter, was God in its way preparing him for what was coming.
It was only about 2 weeks later that he suddenly died of a heart attack.
And I just felt that God had said, you know, you've got to realise I'm there for you, and was preparing him for what was going to happen to him. And I just had the greatest sense of peace. That's the only way I can describe it. Because I just felt that everything was all right with Keith. He had met God and God had prepared him.
Jesus Christ is risen!
He is risen! Jesus Christ is risen!
He is risen indeed! Jesus Christ is risen! He is risen indeed! Hallelujah!
I think at the end of Easter Sunday there was just this sense of celebration. Our 5-act drama of Christ had now come to its conclusion, and there was this sense Christ is risen. And we could go into the rest of Easter Sunday with that sense that Christ is risen. He is with us. No longer a play, no longer a drama, something real for us to take into the future ahead of us.
The friendships that developed, I think they will be long-lasting, and the opportunities for the churches together not to be afraid to take the message of Jesus onto the streets.
I suppose really perhaps the most memorable thing was just to have played that part, to have played the part of Jesus. Somebody I've read about in my Bible, I have a relationship with, a friendship with. He's, you know, my guide in my life and you know, my example. And here I was given this incredible opportunity to try and put that across for the person in the street, to try and perhaps encourage them to seek him as well.
So the play is finished. Many lives have been changed by it, and certainly its work goes on in programmes like this, in schools and on the internet through JesusForToday.com, and in people just meeting and talking about their experience of spreading the radical good news of Jesus to people who've never heard about it, who sometimes don't care about it, and who even ridicule it. Where do you stand?